Hi, this is Jonathan Rosenhead, the Jerusalem psychotherapist. This week's Torah and Psychology post, the Pasha Behaalosecha, is going to look at the response of the Bnei Yisrael to receiving the man. And this incident is puzzling for many different reasons. But let's just deal with the basic facts. They were in the midbar where there was no food, and HaKadosh Baruch Hu provided a miracle. Food came down from the Shamayim. They didn't have to work for it. There was no need to put in any effort. Moreover, the Gemara in Yuma tells us that the food, the man, took on the taste of whatever a person wanted. Seemingly, this was a perfect gift to receive nourishment on call in the midbar, where there is no food. But what's puzzling is the response of the Bnei Yisrael. We're told, the Pesukim say, that they were resentful. They cried out and remembered the times when they were in Mitzrayim, where they received the fish and the meat, the good times that they had in Mitzrayim. And the different Mefarshim tried to understand, how is it possible that they could respond in this way, which is such a lack of gratitude, that they were resentful and complaining about receiving the man. So I'd like to develop this from the conceptualization of what it means to have structure and a framework in one's life. Because this will help us to try to understand the psychological mindset of the Bnei Yisrael at this time. So if we look at child education, and we look at the psychological needs of a child as they are developing, we know that they need and they thrive within a healthy environment, which is one of structure, and there's order, and there's guidelines, and in a sense there's rules, that a child knows what is expected of them. And within that framework, they function, they explore the world, they start to assimilate different ideas and understandings of the world and themselves. And that's how a child will thrive and will flourish and grow and develop in a healthy way. If a child has a framework, an environment where there's no structure, no guidance, no framework, no rules, it's too free. And within this, we know that it can develop into antisocial behavior, maladaptive behavior. A child doesn't come to a parent and say, thank you for, it's unusual for a child to come and say, thank you for the guidelines, thank you for the rules, thank you for the limitations, I appreciate it. But even though they don't say it explicitly, implicitly and in a subconscious level, a child needs that. And a child understands that it is best for them and it's healthy for them and they actually thrive within the structure. So a child needs it. A child yearns this structure. Yes, in the teenage years, where they're trying to develop a little bit more independence and differentiation, then it's normal that perhaps the rebellious behavior and pushing the boundaries, in some way it looks like they don't appreciate and don't want these rules. But that's actually an expression of their individuation. It's an expression of their developing their independence. But that's within the context that there is already, and there is a structure and a framework that within their life. Children need it. It's for healthy development. So if we look at the Bnei Yisrael and the situation they were in, they'd gone from Mitzrayim, servitude, extreme sense, an extreme level and a state of structure, of there being a framework, of boundaries. It was overly rigid, but certainly they were fully aware that they didn't have freedom and they were limited and bound to certain rules and guidelines. That was the state of, for many, many years, for hundreds of years of their servitude in Mitzrayim. And then they went to the Midbar. They're out. They're free. They have a midbar which is full, open. It's a barren land, but it's expansive. It's free and open, which reflects their own situation, their own psychological state, where suddenly everything was open, everything was free. They were no longer limited. There was no guidelines. There was no structure. There was no framework. And within that, as we understand, we can say it leads to a maladaptive way of behaving. It results in an unhealthy way of functioning. So they received this man, and as we said, the man was received, it was on call. He didn't have to work for it. And it went, as we said, it went according to everybody's individual taste and desire. That's playing into the idea that there's no structure, there's no limitations. Whatever you want, however you feel is okay, and it's given expression. So as we can say, this extreme transition from guideline and structure, even though it was servitude, to openness, freedom, and independence was a difficult transition, which they were struggling with at the time, and they needed guidance, they needed guidelines and limitations. So perhaps we can understand, therefore, why their response to the mon was a bit strange and illogical, and there was a resentment, because they were struggling with this transition. They were yearning and needed more guidelines and structure. So it was the way we conceptualize the mindset of the Bnei Israel at this time. It's like a child yearning for more structure, yearning for the rules. They obviously don't want to go back to servitude in Mitzrayim, but they were looking and crying out for some more guidelines and framework, because within that is what leads to the healthy development of children and the healthy development of the Bnei Israel as they are in this state of infancy, of the development of the Jewish people. Have a good Shabbos and keep well.